All right, everyone, welcome to the Blue Room Podcast, an intimate space where we explore ourselves, our lives, and our relationships more deeply through therapeutic conversation. I'm your host, Fantana Shatamsa, and I'm so grateful to be on this journey with you. Today we have Peter Owusu with us. And I'm just right off the jump, just let you introduce yourself before we kind of get into like the conversation, and I have a fun activity for us that you don't know about yet. Um,
Okay,
so I'll let you introduce yourself before I go too far.
for sure. So thank you so much too for having me on. I really appreciate getting the chance to hop on and talk about, financial wellness. I think it's a really important topic and it's really close to my kind of heart. I was actually this is like the wellness piece. I was running right before this, so like maybe an hour before I was running to kind of clear my head in between the work and stepping on, and that's all part of that wellness piece. But
For
a
you.
little bit about myself. Thank you. A little bit about myself, and super fast. I was born and raised in Toronto, just outside of it in Mississauga. Um, Two sisters, one older, one younger, and I ended up doing finance at the University of Ottawa. And I was fortunate enough when I did that to start at TD. So I started at TD when I was in second year university, and I have been there besides a brief, like 6 month sort of trip elsewhere. I basically been there ever since. So I've been there for about 7, 8 years, close to. Yeah, I can't believe it. Um, Across a bunch of different roles. So I was in retail when I was part-time in university, and then I moved to Moncton, New Brunswick in 2019, and I started as a financial operations analyst then. And then I moved from that role to Fredericton, New Brunswick to be a commercial banking associate. And then I was fortunate enough to be able to move to Halifax to be a commercial banking account manager, where I managed about 100 clients with revenues of about $1 million and up, financial needs of about $500,000 and up. So I kind of earned my stripes in business banking and learned all about how to support businesses and entrepreneurs. And then certainly blessed and fortunate that I was able to get the role that I currently hold, which is regional manager for Black community business development, and it covered all of Atlantic Canada. And I got that role November of last year. So just since then, I've been kind of working away, trying to serve the community. And then outside of that, it's just me. I'm gonna pick him up and show him, and then he's gonna run. I've got my puppy, so
You're a little
me and my,
puppy.
it's just me and my
Oh,
boy Bear.
what kind of
And
dog
it's
is
just
he?
Havanese, yeah. So he's a little Havanese. He's about
That's so
eight
funny.
months. Yeah, and he just got his hair cut. So he is
Oh,
almost
wow.
full grown. He's like 9 pounds, so he's a tiny little dog. Perfect for me because I travel for work and stuff. So if I need to ever take him, I can. But no, I'm outside of that, I enjoy kind of spending time at home with my dog. I'm out often, so I'm trying to get to as many events as I can, work and pleasure. I just like being out and about, meeting with folks.
Yeah.
And that's me. That feels long-winded, but that is the Peter story.
No, I mean it encompasses everything. Like obviously I'm grateful that you're on this show today so we could chat about financial wellness. But we met out in community. Maybe no, actually the first time I met you it was when I was in
Didn't.
I'm still in business, but it was when I had the commercial space. Um
Yes.
we had a
Yes.
little, I think you messaged me on LinkedIn or something. You were like,
More
yeah,
than likely.
you're like, do
More
you
than
want
likely.
to connect? Like, I want to chat with you, but like these like programs or opportunities with TD and
Mm,
like businesses. And so then we connected and we chatted about all the TD stuff, but then I learned about all the cool stuff that you're doing in community. Because obviously I have my 13-year-old son, and financial literacy is so important. I was like, do you do any things with like youth or like Black youth? And you plugged me to Black Lives Matter golf. So Mars did that last year.
nice.
Uh,
Good. Good.
yeah, no, he loved it. And then we've been fortunate enough to have you in for a couple of community sessions because obviously the conversation around financial wellness and mental health is so important. Um, and I'm glad that you shared about like your family and kind of your journey through the financial world and kind of your career stuff. But I'm really now realizing like the impact that finances really has on my mental health, and then and obviously everybody else's mental health, because nobody wants to be living paycheck to paycheck, and nobody wants to be struggling, and like as a single mom and low income, like folks are in similar situations or different situations, just scraping by, and we need to like break that cycle. So
Yeah,
I
it's not easy, right? Like it is
oh
certainly not easy. So it's just me and my pup now. I had a partner and then we kind of separated. And now it's like it's managing the household, right? It's so I own my home. It's managing. I'm blessed and fortunate to be able to say that at 26, but it's managing a household, right? It's keeping repairs, it's fixing
yeah,
things.
yeah,
Like I literally just broke a step on my like down to my backyard from my deck. Like I just stepped on a board and it snapped. And it's all sorts of little things. And it's the pop, which is a lot less than I could only imagine a whole child.
yeah.
So it's not easy. And I brought up my family, and I didn't say my mom or my dad, but they've been huge and instrumental in me, and they're the reason why I like to do financial literacy lessons. It's just I was fortunate and blessed to grow up in a home where this was talked about pretty often. Like
Okay.
my dad, he does municipal finance for the city of Toronto, so he does municipal finance and tax and policy and all sorts of good stuff like that. And we've been having these conversations kind of my whole life. And I remember when I turned 18, my dad, the day I turned 18, and I'm born December 23rd. So like it's the holiday season. And my dad was like, go and get a TFSA. He's like, go open your TFSA, go open your RSP. And I was like, bro, I don't even have money. Like I'm 18 and I have a late birthday. Like I just went to university 3 months ago. I have no money. And he's like, just go and do it. Like open it up. And then he taught me about the habit. And I'm sure we'll get into all of that. But like that's why I'm passionate about delivering sessions like this because I know what's not spoke about in all homes, especially in our communities and Black communities. And it's so important that, if it's not going to be talked about in the home, that folks are having an opportunity to hear about these things from people who come from, situations like yourself, like myself, who can kind of see people say, you know what, I'm running a household by myself, or I'm a single mother and I'm raising my child, or I've got my pet and it's just me. Like whatever the situation is,
Yeah.
to have these conversations and just help you think about things a little differently. So I'm really excited to do this. And if anyone's listening and they want to add me and they want to have me come out, I'm more than happy. Like anytime, it's my
Peter
passion. So
Peter will give you his cell phone number just
I
just off the
will.
whim. Like he will just make sure that you're connected. And I mean, I appreciate that about you so much. Like you've really, like, even the last session that we did in East Preston for the Black Mental Health and Wellness project, like people are still talking about it. People are like messaging me. They're like, can you send me the email for the guy that did the session last week? I'm like, yeah, of course. They're like, we love him.
Oh, very nice. Good.
And I'm being 100% dead on. It's like I know we haven't like had a chance to really chat since the last session, but I'm like being so
Oh, that's
serious.
nice.
Yeah, like it's just so many amazing points, like even around kind of like the all or nothing mentality that we can have sometimes. But
Mm,
just knowing where to put your money, knowing that a little bit is enough, and like saving is so important, even if
the
it's just like
habits.
the habits
Yeah.
are so, and when you haven't had this education, a lot of folks in the room, myself included, I was like, when did you first get your financial education? We're like now, like as an adult. Like it's just you've never, like, you don't sit around tables and talk about it. You don't have those opportunities. And I love the story that you shared about your dad, like how he ran a farm in Ghana, and then he came here and he studied agriculture, but then also business, so that he
Mm.
could figure out how to make it, like, sustainable and profitable, and kind of, just kind of share that education with you
They
guys.
stick. That blows my every time you deliver a presentation and then someone tells you a story directly from the presentation. You're like, oh wow, like
You
things
said
people
all of
actually
that.
listen. Yeah, like I actually all and you had the details too. the master's in agriculture and then the MBA, like exactly right, right? So no,
So
I'm glad,
brilliant.
and a couple people texted me too. So I'm glad that folks are seeing the benefit. Like that's and this is a call out to everyone who does these things. It's about the people that we serve, right? And I believe that to my core. Like this is about the people we serve. So go into these communities and deliver these sessions in a way that people are gonna resonate with. It's not enough to, I think
Go with like
especially I know.
and be like,
Yeah,
yeah.
this is like in the world of a banker, I see it often enough. It can be very straight-laced and you gotta be a little loose. Like I think it's funny because we did our presentation, right? And we had the session last week, and I don't think we started the presentation until like at least like 30 minutes into a conversation because it was just kind of
On.
like people are asking questions. Like this is gonna do more than me going through my slides one by one. Like, if you have real questions, like let's dive into them and figure them out. So I love this stuff. I could talk about it forever and go off and on in any which way. So I'll try
And
and stay on topic.
and we did. Like I don't think we introduced you on that session until like almost like an hour in. Like
Yeah.
everyone was just like, tell us everything. Like, we want to know this, we want to know this. And I will just say before I do this little thing, the thing that really struck me was like I think the story about your dad about how he studied agriculture. So I can imagine that's like that's time consuming. Like for the master's program, like how long? Maybe like at least a year.
I think it's two, and he went to win it. I don't know where he went, but he's like Quad. He said, "My name's Quad in Ghana. It's Boy Born on Tuesday." So that's how kind of our naming
Oh
conventions
yeah,
are.
my kids
Um,
are Ghanaian. We have Kwame and Amma. So
Oh, okay. So then okay, great. So then you know perfectly. So I'm a Tuesday. So Kwabna, my dad's like, so talking to Kwab, he's like, Kwab, he's like, I moved to Winnipeg. He's like, I moved to Winnipeg to do this, and I was out here and I didn't know anybody, and I was like, damn. I was like, look, I was like, that's what and then I'm just out here trying to do my thing, but no, he went out, and I think it's about 2 years. I think it was 2 years to do his master's in agriculture, and then I think another 2 years to do his MBA. And my
that's what I'm
mom,
saying. That's the
yeah, it's a lot of
like
school.
to like because he had that long vision, like he had a goal, and this is the part that really struck me. Like it was like it took him 4 or 5 years, however, like traveling back and forth, and you were sharing the story about how you guys didn't really have much. Like your mom was like what am I holding
Yes,
on to? Like
yes,
because it
yes,
was like the struggle
yes.
days. Like it was like 4 years. That's like day after day after day after day of like just like working towards a vision. I mean, do I have 4 or 5 years to like have a habit and like have that endurance? Like, and that's the piece that I think is often missing is like when we have these like, goals, whether it's like financial goals or personal goals or whatever, like sometimes we want things immediately and we don't understand like kind of that day in, day out, like what it actually takes to kind of, like build wealth or like improve your health or like any of those things. So yeah, I was like, damn, I mean, kudos to your mom too, because I can't also like
It's a sacrifice, right? Like, and for I guess the folks who were not there, and just to give you the Cliff Notes version of it, basically, my dad came from Ghana to go to school, and education was always important to him. His mother was sort of a headmaster back home, which is a very high respected role, very education focused. So he's like lots of people always around the house, and he came here. He does school. He does his, like I said, he does his two masters, so agriculture. He does his MBA. And my mom tells this story, and my dad, he tells it the same, but he's kind of just like, "Oh, I just had to do what I had to do." But my mom is like, she's like, I was on your dad, and I was kind of like, we don't have money, like, let's start working. Like, my mom's like, drive taxis, like, do anything. Like, let's just start our lives. And
yeah.
my dad, bless his soul, was like, you can come or you can go. He's like, I have to do this. He's like, I have to do this. Like, I want you to come along for this journey. But like, again, it's that long-term vision. He's like,
Wow.
I see what I want and what I can do, and I need to do these things, right? To grow and to be able to support my family. And my mom says to this day, she says, thank goodness that she married my dad, because my dad does okay, and he's been a great father for us and me and my two sisters. So she's like, thank goodness I kind of stayed around and hung in there. And I think it goes to show, right? Exactly like you said, it's habits, it's a process, it's a timeline, it's not instant gratification, but you put in the time and you put in the work and hopefully eventually you get there. So I learned that from him, and if I can make half the life that he's made for us, for my family in the future, I will be very lucky and happy.
Well, I'm sure he's super proud, and that's yeah, that's a beautiful reminder that like anything worth having is going to take time, and even if you're like doing kind of the paycheck to paycheck, and it feels like you're not making progress by setting aside $5 or $10, like eventually it will give you what you want it to give you. It'll be fruitful, but like you do kind of have to struggle like a little bit. You do have to suffer a little bit, but it's better to to you're gonna the 4 years, the 5 years gonna pass anyway. And you're gonna be suffering anyway. So would you rather come out of the 4 or 5 years with something to show for it or nothing to show for it,
Do
right?
the hard work up front. Like that's another mantra that he gave. And I'm gonna try not to talk about my parents the entire time, but like it's another mantra that my dad gave me the entire time I grew up. And people kind of thought I was like I'm 26 years old right now. I turned 27 in December, and like since I graduated university, I have not left the country. I have not gone on a trip. I have not gone. And like I have worked, and people look at me and they're like, "What? Like, what are you doing? Why? Why?" Like, and I'm
Discipline.
like, it is. My dad has always told me, he's like, Pete, he's like, work hard early on. He's like, put in your time. He's like, I'm giving you this advice. And I try to listen to my dad when I can, not always, but when I can. And he
Yeah.
said, work hard at the beginning and it'll make, he's like, you work hard 25 years. He's like, that sounds like a long time, but it's not. And then you'll have the rest of your kind of life. And it won't be as hard because you would have put that work in at the beginning, right? And it's like you said, it's those habits. Even if you can save $5 a month, you know what I mean? Like by the end of that, you would, excuse me, have a habit that has been built, and you'll be in a better off, like you said, you'll be in a better off spot with a little bit of discipline than you were at the beginning, and you'll see what it can, like how fruitful it can be. So I think discipline is so important with money. So important.
I agree 1,000%. And I want to circle back to this topic um, around like, working hard and kind of that daily grind. Um, but first, what I want to do usually when I have guests, I know we kind of jumped in. That's not anything dangerous, don't worry. Usually we're in person. We've been trying this virtual thing for a bit. So I have this deck. It's called the And. I don't know if you've ever seen this like card deck before. So it's like a really great card for like conversations or like kind of getting to know like the insights like of people and like how their mind works and kind of things that inspire them. So since you're not here to pull, I'm gonna pull it for you. Um, and then I'm gonna pull one for myself, and whatever's pulled, you just gotta answer.
Okay, all right.
And we're gonna leave it a bit to chance. So I want you to tell me if you want the left side or the right side of the deck.
Right.
Okay, and do you want something from the top, middle, or bottom?
Middle. I'm a middle kid.
I'm the only boy, right?
Yeah, only boy. One sister up and one sister down.
All right, so this question for you, it says, do you feel your greatest achievement is behind you or ahead of you? And why?
Wow. Ahead of me. Because I have more to give. I think I'm like I said, I'm a young man, but my ultimate goal is to, and I'm on this podcast. I'm not looking. This is not, but like my hope is that I'll eventually find, my partner in life and have a family.
Oh, hey,
Um,
Peter is a
and
eligible bachelor guy.
so,
No, wait, no, sorry.
so the
Sorry.
whole,
No, sorry.
I,
I'm jumping the guy. My
no,
apologies.
it's all good. It's all fine. But my hope is that I can build a family with somebody and have a family and have children, and that the hard work that I've put in will all be worth it there. And if that's in the cards for me, if it's not, then that's okay too. And I'll be able to do great things. And I think my accomplishments are in the future. But God willing, I think that my greatest accomplishments are ahead of me, and it's gonna be me giving back to my next sort of generation as I get older, because the generation ahead of me gave me everything. Like I give everything that I am to my parents, my grandparents, my aunts and uncles, like the people who helped raise me, because that's in my mind, that's why I am the way I am. I had great people in my life who really helped me, steer me in the right path. So if I can give that to people in the future, then especially my family, that will be my greatest accomplishment. So hopefully it's in the future.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, why not? Like, you've obviously set yourself up in a great way, like financially, academically, like all those things. And just hearing you talk about family since I think the first time that we met, just like learning about your story and stuff, like obviously family is so important to you. So I mean, your greatest achievement, yeah, if it's family, I hope that you get beyond blessed in that area. You might have twins, you might have triplets, you might have
Oh, wow.
quadruplets, everyone.
We'll see. Who knows? Who knows? But thank you. Thank you. What's yours? What is your card?
Yeah, let me see what I have for myself here.
And what's your answer, actually? Now to flip it on you quickly. What's yours for this one? Greatest accomplishment, ahead or behind?
Oh, for sure. Ahead. It cannot be behind. I mean, my kids obviously like my biggest blessing, but like the life that it's similar to you, like the life that I want to create for them, and for ourselves, and then like my descendants, like there's there's so much that my parents really like worked for and strived for, but obviously being newcomers and like new language and where your education is not recognized in a new place, like we grew up like low income housing. There was a lot of things that I had to process and deal with and like heal from, like a lot of like traumatic stuff. And I'm trying to really create a life for my kids that when I pass on to the next life, like they have something that is left for them. But also there's so much that I want to do with my kids. Like I want them to see the world. Like I want them to just experience everything that life has. So I have so many plans for them and for myself. So definitely it has to be ahead
Nice.
for sure. Yeah. Yeah,
Nice.
we've done some good things. We've done some good things, but I feel like obviously with time you learn and you grow, and I'm just like so inspired to just do so much more. And yeah,
The best is
particularly
yet to come. The best is
best
yet
is
to
yet to
come.
come for sure. For sure. I hate this question. This one says, "What are you most concerned about these days?" Um, ah,
I know that can be a very weighty question. There's so much going on.
there's so much going on in the world for sure. But I do feel like having a solid financial foundation will solve so many of my problems. And I feel like you can literally use wealth as a tool to get a lot of things that you want out of life. And I don't want to feel stagnant personally, and I don't want people to feel like they have to be stagnant. Like I want folks to know that there are options, and there is hope, and there's ways to like build out of it. But yeah, no, for me, I would say finances for sure. Like it's an area that I'm learning in and I'm growing in, but certainly not where I want to be. So I'm grateful that we're having these conversations, and the effect on the mental health is such a big piece because I haven't had any of those habits in terms of. I mean, I always like invested as far as like in the kids' education and the TFSA and RSPs, but like really big emergencies came up personally, like with the business and stuff. So I made some tough decisions where I cashed out my TFSA, cashed out my RSP. So now I'm like kind of starting from square one, and I'm trying to rebuild. And I feel like I'm kind of on the other side of that kind of turbulent time. So I'm just trying to get these, apply these new habits and apply this new education so that, I definitely learned the hard way, and I want to make sure that moving forward there's better practices. So um I mean, I'm
But she,
grateful. Yeah, no, sorry, go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say, I think an important piece from that though, and it's on the mental wellness side, and it's something that I learned is, and it piqued my interest when you said you have to pull some of your money out for emergencies.
Mm,
I had this thought lately, and I guess I'll share it again. It's kind of, we're kind of all over, but I think it's really important. I hit a bus. Basically, like I rear-ended a bus. It was this whole thing. It was very light, like no damage to the bus. Everybody's fine. I'm fine. It's a whole thing. It's nothing.
yeah.
But my car just ate it. Like it just ripped my front bumper off. Like it was a whole thing. Ripped
Wow.
my front mirror off and everything. And I was waiting around with the bus driver and then the transit officer who came. You're waiting for the actual officer who's going to come in and take him and we'll eventually be able to leave. And one of them asked me at one point, they're like, "You're pretty calm for like somebody who just was in like your car." And I was like, isn't this why you save money? And he's like, huh. And I was like, honestly though, I was like, honestly, I was like, again, fortunate to have my home and
Yeah.
everything, but I'm like, what's an emergency fund for, right? The word's in it, it's emergency. But we
Yeah.
have this weird feeling of our money, like we want to watch it accumulate and grow almost with
Mhm.
nothing, like almost just for the sake of growing it. So I
Mhm.
sat for a second and I was like, well, Peter, like you've been working for a couple of years and you've been good at saving money and you've done these things. This is why you have emergency money for emergencies. I think hitting a bus and ruining your car is an emergency. So don't feel bad about having to spend that money. And
Yeah.
it piqued me when you said, and I'm not sure obviously the certain circumstances and everything, but it's one of those things where it's like your business is your baby, right? I know from my time with business, like your business is your baby.
Yeah.
And especially if there's an unforeseen thing happening in your business, right? It's one thing to have something that you maybe should have known about and could have planned, but especially if it's something unforeseen, if
Mhm.
there's an emergency, like that's what emergency money is sometimes for. So it's just a different way of kind of thinking. I think people can beat themselves up because I do that. Like I think people can beat themselves up
Yeah.
about spending their money once they save or like saving it for this abstract thing. But your emergency money is meant for emergencies and people shouldn't feel
That's
bad
big.
about
Yeah.
needing to use it for that. And that's just again that mental wellness piece.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it felt like a blow, taking it out because I had been investing in these accounts for quite like for several years, and I was so
Hmm.
proud of what was in there. And then having to take it out, hoping that it would save the situation, but it just couldn't. Uh,
Hmm.
and then just having to try to rebuild after that, like that's kind of, the rut and the cycle. But again, like I'm just like I'm super optimistic, and I feel like there
Good.
is like, a light at the end of the tunnel. And I know that these conversations are really helpful. And I mean, that's a perfect segue into like this conversation around financial wellness. And I guess like, I guess the first question is like, how do we get rich? Like, give us like the 411. How can we get rich quick?
If I knew, I would be rich. If I knew, I'd be rich. My dog would be living in luxury. He wouldn't be sleeping on a blanket on the floor. He'd be a rich dog too. Um, I think rich is a state of mind. I think what people want to look for, right? And rich is all relative. I certainly, and my boss asked me this question when I got this job, the one I'm in currently. He's like, when you were like just graduated university, if you told yourself what you'd be doing right now and how much you'd make, would you think you were rich? And I was like, I would have. And he's like, but do you feel rich? And I was like, not in the slightest. And he's
No.
like, that's how it works, right? And he's
Wow.
VP of commercial, and he's giving me this advice, and he's like, that's not how it works. He's like, you'll be more comfortable, you can do more things, but he's like, but you don't feel rich, do you? And I was like, no. And he's like, it's a pretty common thing. So
It's
it's
like
just,
consumerism, it's capitalism,
yes.
it's like, white supremacy. There's like so many like things.
There's so many
Like,
layers to it,
there's
right?
so
There's
many.
so many layers, especially as racialized people, as a black woman, right? As a black man, which, similar experience on the black side of things, very different experiences on the gender side of things.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So,
No, it's no secret, but these systems were not designed allow us to get ahead or to thrive. But you're absolutely right. I had this conversation at the Black Women's Wellness Retreat, and we had a panel of women speaking. There was Martina and Jasmine. We had Rashida, she's a spiritual healer, and another lady who was a psychologist, I think, or social worker. Anyway, all these Black women are just like chatting about wellness. And my question was like, how come like we have the most resources, like we're making more than we've ever made, like we've had more time than our grandparents did, as far as like we have all the resources for things to do things. Like I'm not washing my dishes by hand, like washing my clothes by hand. There's machines, there's things around to give us more time, but like we're so much more stressed. We feel like, we're not reaching our goals. We feel unfulfilled, and our mental health is taking a hit. Like, why is it? And you're right. Like, that's the way it was designed to be. Like, it's never designed for us to
no.
feel fulfilled. So I love that you say like rich is a state of mind. But if we're trying to bring that into our pockets and into our bank accounts.
Yes, then there is definitely steps you can take. So again, it's being wealthy is all relative. But if you are trying to build your wealth, right? Again, those big things for me, the number one thing is habit. It's habit. It's like going to the gym, it's like running, it's like working out, it's anything. It's developing a habit, because the numbers change, but the habit stays the same, and that's where you see growth, right? It's like I mentioned earlier on, my dad, I don't think I extracted this perfectly, but when my dad made me open my RSP and my TFSA, he did me save, and I was in university, and I was kind of working part-time at TV, but I was paying for stats, and I did not have a lot of money. I was very broke, I was broken or student like most people. And I remember I was like, bro, I don't want to do this. I was like, I don't want to put money into my RSP. So I just don't want to do this. I'm 19 years old. I don't want to think that it's like, this is so dumb. I'm never gonna be this old. And like I just was like not good at like seeing it then. I was just like, I'm never gonna be that old. Like it's 100 years off. Like, why do I need to do it? And he's just like, it is the habit. He's like,
Yeah.
just be used to putting money away as soon as you get it. Just get used to it. And totally right he was totally right in saying that. It was all about the habit of, okay, like every time I got paid, it was nothing. Like it was like $5 a month. It was literally nothing. I did not put much money in it at all. I'm pretty sure when I finished university, it was 4 years. I finished with a couple $100 at the absolute most. But it was the habit of doing it every time that I got used to. So then when I started to make money as a financial operations analyst, and then a little
Right.
bit more in commercial, and then a little bit more when I became an
Right.
account manager, and then even more when I got into this role, the habit stayed the same, right? I'm still used to putting that money aside. And that's how I've really seen growth. I tell some folks all the time, like, it's hard, right? Especially, if like the world is expensive right now. If the income doesn't match, it's hard. So just develop those good habits so that when you get to part two, which
Mm-hmm.
is second streams of income,
Mm-hmm.
you have those habits. And that would be my second point for folks would be second streams of income are so important. They are not for everybody. I think we've kind of there's a shift in the conversation to everybody says, you have to have a side hustle. You have to have a side hustle. I do not have a side hustle. I don't. I don't want one. I don't have one. I don't have a second stream of income. I have my house and I do my work and I do my job. And it's just because that is what works for me in building my wealth and what I'm doing.
Well, I
But
mean, I want to add like a second stream of income. Like, I mean, I have the business and I have my day job and things like that. But things that I've done in the past to make money, like I've taken kids in, like babysit. I've done childcare. I've sold my clothes, sold my kids' old clothes, sold furniture that is not really necessary. There's so many things that you can do. Like if it's washing a car, if it's like, going to mow
exactly.
lawn or like shovel or like there's so many things that you can do to generate income. And I think once you start to realize, there was a story of this girl who she went to the golf courses and she would pick up the balls that nobody was using anymore,
Mm,
the ones that are thrown out in the ponds and in like the woods. She would pick up the balls, she would go wash them off, and then she would resell them. And I think
smart.
once, right, like once you start realizing that like you
So
have the
many
ability
ways.
to make money, like it's not like that's happening to you, like you can kind of change that narrative and change that outcome, and you can like create change to generate income. Once you start becoming creative in that way, then you start like thinking about so many limitless and creative ways to make money. So
And you should. And that's where I was saying, it's like my point, my whole thing was, it may not be for everybody, right? It
mhm.
may be that that's not for you, and that's okay. But if it is for you, it's like you just said, there are so many creative ways. We live in such a interconnected world right now. You can have things that you ship off, like it's anything. You can have a global small business from your living room. Like it doesn't matter. It's find your ways because exactly right, right? Like I often will say, like sometimes I remember I had this conversation with my partner as we were coming up, or my ex-partner as we were coming up before, and I was kind of like, I just don't think we make enough money. I like we don't make enough money. I was like, it's just we don't make enough money. The world's really expensive. We either have to like we need to find a way to make more money, and that's either make more money in our day jobs
Yeah.
or develop a side income and a side hustle to get more money. But we don't, and that's the other thing I tried to say. And then as my career kind of grew, and I always used to tell her the same thing. I was like, don't beat yourself up because because I know that happens with a lot of folks. You're trying to save and you feel like you're not coming out and you're beating yourself up. Sometimes you just don't make enough money. And then from there, you have to really figure out, is there the ability for me to make more money in my day job? Or do I need to make more money from that side hustle? And then you kind of make that distinction and go from there. But it's so important to understand that and not, again, on that mental wellness side of things, not beat yourself up. Like, do
Yeah.
not beat yourself up because you're not where you want to be with your saving goals or everything, right? Like, just have those habits, trust the process. Shout out, the 76ers, but like, trust the process and just
Yeah.
go through it and, adjust and align. I always say, like, you can't be too strict. You have to adjust and realign as you see things work and things don't, but trust that you're doing the right thing if you make the habits.
Yeah, it can be very discouraging, and I've definitely been in it. I've seen people in it. Like you could be working 12-hour days
Right.
and you're just still not even making the ends meet, and you're just you kind of get into bad habits of like taking on more debt and doing things like that, and you're just trying and you just can never get out of the cycle. But I love like that you spoke about the habits, because I certainly was like in a mindset where I'm like, if I don't save $100 every single paycheck, what's the point? Or if I have a savings and I take out like 50%, I might as well take out the 100% because I'm at zero anyway. Like it's like an all or nothing
Mm.
mentality. We should be having, like, we don't need to have, like, even if it's $5, $10, whatever it is. it's all kind of making strides in the long run. It really is about the habit, like for sure. And even like the kind of getting that second income, um, again, that may not work for everybody, but there are so many like creative ways to
Already.
make money, especially like now with like AI, like you could just come up with a journal or a digital book or whatever you want to do, like and start selling it. Like if you're driving to work or school anyway, like you can carpool, like charge people some money for doing it. Um Things that don't necessarily, and I say this about like physical wellness too. Like I'm like, don't add anything extra into your day if you feel like your schedule is already jam packed. Like do things that you are already easily, like you can easily incorporate. Like you can take a meeting, like a phone meeting while you're on a walk, like do that. If you can, wake up like 5 minutes earlier, if you can like go outside to the playground with your kids, or just walk around with a 2 liter jug of water, or like whatever it is that you can incorporate to your day already, like do that. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. Like take the stairs or whatever is already part of your schedule.
Little change, right? It's those little changes, and
Yeah.
that's kind of how I handle my fitness. So it's interesting because that's the exact same thing, right? It's all those little things that you can do that do add up. It doesn't have to be that I get in the gym for an hour and a half. It's sometimes I mow the lawn. Like I have a push mower. It's not like gas or anything. So that's a workout, right?
That's
It's like, all right,
yeah.
I'm pushing my mower. I try, like you said, take the stairs. I try to
Yeah.
take the stairs as often as I can just because it's just extra steps, right? Like it's
Yeah.
all these little things that add up that are so important.
Yeah, no, for sure. I love that you said that. So with the habits, getting good financial habits, um, whether it's, try to get a second source of income if you can. What do you feel about like investments or like the right type of accounts? Like what do you think folks should know as far as like what types of accounts should we have? Should we be investing, or should folks just be focusing on saving? Like, what are your thoughts around that?
I think, and be very specific to say that, everybody's circumstance is very different, right? I think kind of a trusted set of people in your life and see what they did and then kind of know. Because we had this conversation at the financial literacy where we talked about RSP versus TFSA and what's useful for which one.
Mm.
It is such a complex question to answer in just especially if you don't know tax, if you don't know all these different things, like because there's so many implications. So I think there's important accounts people should know. There's the new first-time home buyers account, which I believe operates in a very similar like TFSA RSP kind of hybrid way. I'm not as familiar because it's very new. I bought my house last year and it came out after I bought my house, so it's within like the
Oh,
last
okay.
year. Yeah, so it's quite a new account, but very, very useful for home saving. Your RSP, right? It is tax deductible, so meaning you put some money in your RSP, you can claim that on your taxes, lowers your tax burden, can increase your refund. And money that you put in your RSP, you can take out under certain rules for your first time home buyers. So you can use that money to buy your first home. So if you're looking to buy your first home, that's always an option. Your tax-free savings account, I always tell folks, don't just have it as an account. It doesn't make any sense. If you have a tax-free savings account and there's nothing in that account that would be taxed, then there's no real reason to, or minimal tax, there's not much of a reason to use it, right? Like use it for investments, use it for things that would potentially, right? Investments can have capital gains tax. You can avoid that with your tax-free savings account. So
I
use these accounts.
I banked with TD, and that was one of the first investment accounts that I opened up, was like a TFSA.
Mm,
And so I didn't even have to think about it. Like they were doing all the kind of like trading or whatever, like thing, whatever the lingo is, but they were doing all that stuff for me. So I just watched kind of the money grow like over time. And I thought that was like brilliant. So then when I wanted to take the money out, like I don't even think was I
yeah.
taxed at all? It would be no
No, it
tax.
would be it would be tax free. So you would have your fees to sell whatever security you kind of held, and then away you kind of go. It's that simple, right? So accounts like that are always fantastic. But talk to me, talk to a friend. I say talk to a friend, but I always have the caveat, every situation is different. I think oftentimes we'll compare our situation to other folks's, and I think that's where you can get lost because every situation is different. But still talk and get an idea of what other people are doing. Talk to myself, talk to your bankers. Like these conversations don't need, I think people often think these conversations need to have actions from each conversation. They don't. They can be fact-finding conversations, right? Somebody reached out to me on email today and was like, "Hey, I'd love to have a conversation. I heard about actually another person. It's like I heard about your financial literacy event. I'd love to talk about like buying a home and a few different things." And right, it's like having those conversations is more important than having any one product because then you can position yourself to go where you're best suited because that's way more important.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm definitely like action oriented. So I would want to ask like if you had like one tip that someone could apply today, like in terms of like wanting to improve their financial health long term, like what would that like one tip be?
Set up a pre-authorized transfer out of your account the day you get paid. That is my number one tip. I learned it very young and I implemented it a little bit older than very young and I still do it to this day. Um, as soon as I get paid, I have a pre-authorized transfer. You can set them up at a TD branch. You just walk in and say, I want to set it up. And you can explain what it is and everybody will know. It's basically what I like to do is as soon as I get paid, I like to make sure that this transfer goes out so that when I wake up the next day and I check my accounts, because I try to check it, and that's another tip, try and check your accounts regularly. It's really important to check them on a regular basis. I can look in my account and the money that I was supposed to save is already gone.
Hmm.
And there is a wellness and a psychological component to that because you don't miss it as much, right? Like once you recognize, like it's a lot harder to get the money and then transfer it out than it would be to just walk and open your account and see that that money isn't there, right?
Right.
So put it in something like that. And then another tip, and this is for the folks who have a little bit harder time being as disciplined, talk to your bank about enforcing discipline, right? Banks can set it up. So like there's holds on your account. So like it takes, a day to transfer, all sorts of things like that. Like those are really, really helpful to be able to say, you know what, like I
Like
set
impulsive, like emotional buyers,
yes,
like
like myself too. Yeah. Like it's because it's so easy, right? It's so easy to just go, 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 especially on a bigger purchase. So set that up, like set up something where you can put your money aside in an account that it takes like a day for the money to clear the account or something like that. Set up a hold because then, you're taking, and it's all about if you're disciplined to follow it, but if you're not, recognize it and then take the steps to try and support yourself and set yourself up for success.
absolutely, because you will fall off the train 100 times, but you need to just get up that one more time and just like
Exactly.
keep on going.
So
Because
one
that
time you figure it out, then
literally, yeah, you'd be on the road, you'd be on your way. I know like the saving is probably like one mantra that I'm really trying to apply in my own life. Just like whether it's, 20 bucks or $5, whatever it is, just set it aside. Like don't touch it. And I am so emotional and so impulsive. But I'm working on it. But if I see it and I'm like, oh, like I just have this money sitting there and there's this thing coming up, like even if it's an emergency, like I'm in the habit of sometimes pulling it out, but what I'm trying to get better at is finding ways to generate more income to handle the emergencies that I don't have to touch that savings. And it's like a learning process. Like I'm always like up and down. But like I said, this is like the first time in my life as an adult that I'm getting like financial education. So there's a lot in the process and I appreciate like touching on like if be forgiving with yourself. If this doesn't work for you, figure out another thing that works for you. You don't necessarily have to like follow what everybody else says, but do what works best for you. Just make sure that you're trying to do something because the financial
exactly.
it's a big piece of your overall
Huge.
wellness. For
And a
sure.
call out to all of the folks out there in communities who or I guess who aren't in community. So call out to my like the fellow bankers of the world, the accountants, the people who do lots of people are doing these financial literacy sessions, right? Lots of people are having these conversations, but you hit the nail on the head by saying, this is the first time you've had these conversations, and you are a bright, intelligent business owner who has done fantastic things, and but that's your reality, and it's so
Yeah.
important. And I learned that by going into community and really talk, but it's so important that us folks who put these sessions on understand that that is the reality a lot of folks are facing. And you
Yeah.
make an impact by understanding that and meeting people at their level and then helping them grow. It does nobody good to show up and have a conversation that is too high level because we assume that, people should know what an asset or a liability is or what a net worth is or what all these other terms are. A lot of people don't, and it's not on them. It's that these words weren't used in their homes. They weren't used by their friends. They weren't used in the schools the way they should have been. So
Yeah.
meet people and bring them along. If I can say anything to anyone who listens who does sessions, like meet people and bring them along. You have to be in these communities that you want to serve to understand them and bring content that people want and
Mhm.
people would enjoy hearing. Like I said,
Mhm.
like I couldn't imagine, doing if a stuffy banker came and spoke to me at 16. If now, if now I'm 20, like
Yeah.
now if somebody came to me and was like reading, I'd be like, I have no interest. Like I just have no interest in this. Like I'm
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah.
So I just think
Not
it's so
relatable.
important.
People can't
It's no
connect to it.
Yeah, like this is a
Yeah.
conversation that needs to be open and dynamic and passionate and filled with questions and curiosity. Like that's how we get there instead of just, hey, here is, some tips on how to save and how to budget. So I am so thankful that we have this time to have these kind of conversations and hopeful that folks after this reach out. And again, it's not all about I love your business. I want it. I'm a businessman at the end of the day. I love your business, but my goal is to improve Black Atlantic Canadians' lives
Yeah.
and their financial lives. So reach out.
Peter, honestly, we can see your passion, we can see your heart for community. Anytime I've offered, any sort of, compensation for your time or anything, you're like, no, 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 like this is like my job, this is what I do, like, and it goes beyond that. Like you were out in community just hugging everybody last week, and we just see your heart, and like I'm super grateful that you're part of community, and then you're part of like a resource that we can use because you're bringing a very integral conversation to the collective conversations that we're all having in our communities, in our racialized communities, in our just in our low income communities. That there's so much that's been missing. This has been like a real missing link. Like we've been talking about mental health and physical health and spiritual health, yes and no. I'm still trying to push that into bring that back into communities. But the financial wellness piece was really a gap. And even like doing the assessment in community, like that was like the top thing that folks really want to know about. And it really just empowers us to just not let the circumstances or the cards that we were dealt like define us, or even our past mistakes. Like, yes, we might not have had the financial education, you might have made a lot of really poor financial decisions, but that doesn't mean you can't, learn and grow and kind of start from this moment and move forward. So
Exactly.
thank you so, so, so much. Like, this is a huge conversation, and we've already kind of like chatted for what, like 45 minutes or so. And I know that we're going to keep chatting because we keep bringing you in. But if folks want to reach out to you and kind of have one-on-one conversations with you, what's your contact information? How can folks reach out?
Yes. So normally I do give my cell number.
Gotta give
This
yourself
time I
time.
am giving, this time I'm giving my work cell number, but still just as easily reachable. If anybody needs me, you can get me. So my number is 902-717-2543. Again, that's 902-717-2543. One more time because I stuttered. 902-717-2543. And then my email is Peter, so my first name, Peter, dot Owusu, and that is spelled Owusu at td.com. And one more time, that's Peter dot Owusu at td.com. So you can reach me there. You can shoot me a text. You can call me. You can email me. If you see me out and about, you can stop me. I'm I promise I am the easiest person to approach. I just walk right up to me and ask questions. I love to do this. So happy to chat with anybody who just wants to kind of chat and talk some of this stuff out. I'm happy to be there for you.
Amazing. And you said 902-717-2543.
That's it. Yep.
Okay. Saving it right now.
That's it. Yeah. So
Tired of
folks,
messaging LinkedIn.
yeah, so if folks need it, I'm on LinkedIn too. You just Peter Owusu, my first name, my last name, LinkedIn, and TD. I'm sure I'll come up. But Owusu is a really common name for folks who don't know. From Ghana, it's like Smith in Ghana. It's like a very, very common
Okay.
last name there. So you'd be surprised because people are like, oh, just Google Peter Owusu, and then there's like a bunch, and like, yeah, it's actually a really common name. And then if you go Clubna, it's even way more. But around and here if anybody needs anything, just please reach out. I would love to have the conversation.
Amazing. Well, there you have it. Thanks again, Peter, for joining us for this important conversation. Again, for folks that are listening, you can reach out to Peter for any questions or just to have a conversation around finances. And make sure that you follow us on Instagram. We are the Blue Room Podcast. Check us on YouTube. Let us know what you thought about this episode, and we will chat with you all again soon. Bye.
But yeah, thanks for having me.